Hey, what's good, fam? Welcome to another episode of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. Darius and Jeff coming to you from Scottsdale with the co-founder of Her Soul Story, Tayne Griffin. Thank you for making the time.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You came into my universe by virtue of a talk you gave for Lululemon with two good friends of mine, Jessica Castro, who I believe helped set that up with you. And then in attendance was one of my coach's mentees and the gym's nutrition coach, Caitlin. And they both came back from that event just like, oh my God, you've got to have Tayne on your podcast. We were just crying so much. Her story is so powerful. Her message is incredible. And so I trolled you on social media and got to digging into what Her Soul Story is all about. And like we were talking about offline, we've had some really solid females on the show recently, like in the last 3 months. And the thing that really stuck out about Her Soul Story is just the emphasis on just female empowerment. You know, the control with which women and human beings in general, I guess, have of their universe. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that you do such a great job of pointing out is the bringing to the surface the awareness of that fact that a lot of people miss.
Yeah.
You know, where's that message come from for you?
So the thing that I really like sharing about empowerment itself is I really believe empowerment is permission. I will never stand in front of a room on a stage anywhere and claim to empower people.
Sure.
Because empowerment is something that you have to turn on inside you.
Yeah.
There's like a switch that's in there that like on, you're empowered, off, you're disempowered.
Right.
But I can stand in front of a room and I can shine the light on your switch.
Yeah.
But you've got to click it. But like we talked about earlier, like that buzzing when it's on and you just like it's on a dimmer and you just keep kicking it up and kicking it up and kicking it up.
Yeah.
That's what our events are meant to do. Our events are meant to say, there's your switch. And then they turn it on and then, man, then we're on fire. Then we can really make something amazing happen. And that's the message I want women to understand. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, when you were at that seminar and you were crying and you felt so inspired, you can do that anywhere at any time, even when it feels really hard, even when you feel like you're in total shit bath. It's available. It's something that you can turn on, you know, that's the mindset part of it. It's just remembering.
Yeah.
It's just remembering.
What made you want to get into that space and empowering women and starting this whole journey of seminars?
Yeah. So growing up, I wasn't in that environment. It was always, my models were always looking for more. It should be some way. It shouldn't be this way. And so I didn't know that I could shift myself as myself, no matter what my circumstances were. And I started getting into personal growth and development when I was in my 20s. And I realized that there's what happens in life and then there's what you make it mean. And that's my responsibility.
Yeah.
Once I got that I had to be responsible for how my life was going and I got to make it mean whatever I wanted to make it mean, I didn't have to make it mean like it wasn't good enough anymore.
Oh, sure.
It could be. And I had to realize that I was running around like, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like that. He should treat me like this. He should do things like that. She shouldn't say that. All these things. And I had it like, if I accepted my life as it was and gave thanks for it, that to me, I thought that meant I was giving up. Like I wasn't striving for more. Like I was sort of settling. And that's not my personality. I don't settle.
Yeah.
What I realized was once I gave thanks for how everything was just as it was, then possibility opened up.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I've been missing it this whole freaking time. It's right there. I just have to stop resisting. What I resist persists. So once I stopped resisting and really just said thank you, boom. Okay, now what? Oh, now what? Okay, cool. So that's sort of the transition.
Yeah.
And once I tuned into and really got into co-creating, like we talked about, declaring who I wanted to be, setting intentions, my whole life changed.
Yeah.
And I just wanted other people to know that they could do the same thing. And I really resonated in having these conversations with women, which is why it turned into a women's empowerment movement.
Who was the person? What was the event? What was the book that was the catalyst for the shift? Like, obviously that transition, who you were then and who you are now, doesn't happen overnight, but something moves into your life to get you to take the first step.
Yeah. So I think the first seminar that I took that really changed the conversation for me was the Landmark Forum.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys are familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So so I'll back up. My father is a bioenergetic psychotherapist. He co-founded it. And this was like what the conversation I was submerged in when I was young.
I've never even heard of that. I've never even heard of that in my life. That's crazy.
So
time out.
Yeah.
What's bioenergetic psychotherapy?
Okay. So
is that NLP? Like what?
No. Okay. So bioenergetic psychotherapy, in a nutshell, is healing the mind through the body.
Okay.
So really, like, I teach my kids, because my dad taught me, when you're mad, I hand them a tennis racket and they beat the crap out of their beds. And they breathe and they scream and they get it out. Okay. It's like really moving emotion through your body so it doesn't stay stuck there.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Different things like that. So my dad's specialty was in early childhood traumas.
Okay.
But the concept around moving your body, movement creates emotion, you know? So it's like, if you can move your body in a certain way to release the emotion, then you can work through a lot of things.
That's how Tony Robbins like literally moves the room.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, he's definitely someone that I consider a mentor. My first coaching training I did through his, I don't know, I guess institute, university, whatever you want to call it. But everything from motivational like that to when I first read Superbrain by Deepak Chopra and Rudolph Tanzi, and I really understood the science behind how when you sit down and you meditate, you can actually increase brain matter and you can shift the way you feel and it can be lasting and you can regenerate in that way. I wanted to learn more. And Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic and Gabrielle Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back, Brendan Burchard's Habits, everything. It just, I am constantly consuming energetic ways of feeling, scientific ways of learning, emotional ways of being. It's all one package, and I feel like they all come together to experience your best life. Okay. So Landmark Forum kicked it off, and I sat in there. I'll circle back. I sat in that seminar thinking like, I know this.
Don't we all? Huh?
This is not new. Yeah. But when I got my seminar was after, when I agreed to assist other courses. Okay. And I realized as I was driving to assist those courses, I would pray for a flat tire. Or think about all the ways I couldn't make it that night. Yeah. Like I didn't have it like I had any integrity around my word. Yeah. And that was the first time I was like, what, why? What's that about? I can't show up. I can't be my word. Wait, who am I? Yeah. And so I really had it like, listen, Tayne, if you can't be your word, you can't be much. So that's when I started turning it around.
Man. Okay. All right. So, how did her soul story come to be?
So I was grinding in corporate medical sales for 10 years. And it was a great platform for providing for my family. I felt like there was a certain amount of prestige around what I did, you know, all the things. And at the same time, it became very clear that who I was as a person didn't matter much. to what I was doing. I was a number. You woke up in the morning, you checked your numbers. You were either a red box, a yellow box, or a green box. If you're a green box, nobody touches you. They don't bother you. They leave you alone. You do your thing. If you're yellow, you get more phone conversations. If you're red, they're like, what are you going to do to turn it around?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't know me. They don't know my kids. They don't know where. They know nothing. So I was like, this can't be it. This just can't be it. You hit your number, and then the next day you have a new number. So I started a request, like a really deep, soulful request for what was next. I would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock before my family got up, and I don't choose early rising naturally. That's not really my thing, but it was the only time I had true time to myself. And I would go out and I would walk and walk and walk and just really be in request to the universe. Please show me. Show me how to make a lasting positive impact in the lives of others. I knew that's what I was meant for. I just felt it. I was just so called to it, but I didn't know how. I couldn't see the path.
Yeah.
And then what I realized over those couple of years, I was living the path. In 2008, the market crashed. And at the time, it was my husband, and I was pregnant with our first child, my daughter. And over the course of the next 6 months, we were evicted from our home, and we lost all 5 of our properties that we had invested in.
No crap.
And we found ourselves...
Did you get caught up in the subprime thing?
My husband was in mortgages.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like a little more than caught up. We got to this point where we had to call our friends and ask them to help us move all of our things out of our home as I'm holding our 4-month-old baby.
Oh my God.
Watching them pack our life up into pods. And our gracious friend let us live in his guest bedroom. And it was me and my husband and our 3 dogs and our newborn baby in a pack and play in his living room.
Shut up.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is not in the 10-year plan. This is not I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
The biggest fight I had every day during that time was with my own mind. Yeah. And that's when I really realized mindset is everything. So how am I going to get myself into a space where possibility is alive again? At that time, we decided that we were going to hire a lawyer to see what our options were. And it was costing a lot of money, and we were running out of time. And my husband looked at me and he said, if you want, we'll just start over. We'll go rent somewhere. We'll just wait until all of the foreclosures clear on our credit and, start again. He said, but if you want to fight, I'll fight. And I was a kid that was bullied a lot when I was in school. I didn't think much of myself. I didn't feel like I was a strong person.
Really?
Yeah. But in that moment, I just knew. I looked at him and said, I want to fight. And we won the lawsuit with the bank. We got our house back.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long was that process?
We lived... So it started before we were evicted.
Okay.
And we lived with our friend for 6 months.
Okay.
But we celebrated my daughter's first birthday back home.
Oh. That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge.
Okay.
So that's the first time I felt like I really was stepping into my potential and understood the power of mindset.
Yeah.
And even in really, really tough situations, we can choose to show up and be something.
Yeah.
What were the conversations you were having with yourself in those 6 months?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, in those 6 months, it was sort of like once I decided that we were going to fight, I had it like we were going to win. I would drive by our house every single day. And I would visualize us back there. I would see my daughter playing in the yard. I would see the weeds getting pulled, the pool getting shocked, moving stuff back in. I just had it like, we're going to be back here.
Right.
It was the time moving up until that, up until the decision, that there was all this suffering.
How long was that?
Let's see. My husband's company went under when I was still pregnant with my daughter.
Okay.
And we moved back in when she was 1. So the whole she was 4 months old when we moved into our friend's house. So I would say it was about a year.
Yeah. When did you decide to when did you make the decision to fight though?
When I looked at our life in a guest bedroom.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
Okay.
not happening.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Like, I've been rock bottom, but I haven't been rock bottom like that. Like, I was rock bottom by myself at 22, living out of my truck. So, like, I didn't have.
You know what?
I
Though,
wasn't worried about anybody else.
Right.
That's like a different kind of rock bottom.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. But at the same time, you still know what it feels like to be there.
Oh, I mean, from there you can go nowhere but up. I think it's the most powerful place to come from.
Well, right.
At the same time,
yeah.
like, I don't wish anybody experienced that whatsoever.
Yeah. Although I'm so clear now, like I have such faith that things are going the way they're supposed to be going all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if, like we talked about manifesting, we talked about the secret, I just totally trust. Like things go wonky and I just go, okay, well, I guess I'll hold on for what's next.
Sure.
Because I'll manifest a lot of things. Things show up in my life that I've put out into the universe and I'm like, there you are.
Yeah.
But sometimes they show up in really ugly packages.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I have to be willing to open it up and be like, oh, I don't want this gift. I think this was like, I don't think I want this. But then once I look inside, oh, actually I ordered this. This is awesome. This is just really shitty wrapping paper.
Yeah. Give us an example of that.
Okay. So we just moved into our new home. This was 3 years ago.
Okay.
And we had done a bunch of construction with it. It was a new build, but it wasn't ours. So we had some things to change and modify. And it was Halloween time. The kids were there in their little skelly PJs, and I bought all the crafts from Michael's, and we're having family movie day, and I'd opened a bottle of wine. We're going to make pizza. You know, like I'm really leaning in to the holiday vibe at this point. And my husband was on his iPad, and he'd been thinking about getting a new truck.
Okay.
And he said, you know, I'm going to go test drive this truck real quick because I really think I want it, but I've never driven it. And we've made the mistake before of him buying a car and he hasn't sat in it.
Yep.
So I said, well, okay. I mean, we're not really doing anything, but he's like, it's not going to be long. It'll be fine. I don't even really need to tell you the rest of how the day went because 8 hours later, he showed up with the truck. I have no pizza. The kids are eating frozen food out of the freezer. So am I. And I'm not going to talk about how much wine was left in the bottle because I don't think there was a lot. We've watched like 4 Halloween movies and he pulls up with this truck and I'm like,
What the fuck happened?
It's not going to take long, right?
so now wait, here's the best part. It doesn't fit in the garage.
Oh,
Yes.
So now we have 2 choices because I have a rule. No cars parked in the driveway. Like that, no car lives in my driveway.
Okay.
And we've had that rule for a long time.
yeah.
So it doesn't fit in the garage. Yeah. So now he can either take it back or extend the garage. We have just finished construction on this house.
That's a mess.
So now we extend the garage.
Oh, wow.
Here's what happened out of all of that, though. What he didn't know is I do what is called a descriptive vision. So I write down a perfect day in a life that I'm living, that it's just a total dream. It's ideal.
Yeah.
Every single detail. I don't leave anything out. How I feel, what I do that day, who I'm surrounded by, what my work is, the way things look. And in that descriptive vision, I talk about starting my day in a little nook just for me, in the house I love, filled with the ones I love. And that's where I do my morning gratitude and meditation, and I get to greet the day there.
Yeah.
That nook does not exist. We extend the garage.
Now it does.
And he said, you know what I think would be really great? What if we just added a little meditation space for you on top of the new garage?
Boom.
Boom. Showed up in a really fucking irritating way with that truck. But I was patient enough and then realized, oh, it's just you giving me what I asked for. I had to be flexible. And so I've really learned to trust and be flexible with the way things show up and the way things go, because it's all really working for me.
Yeah.
Not to me.
Love it. So here's a question for you. We were talking offline about, being in control and the things that you attract into your life, specifically in the relationship space. And you seem to have a really solid relationship with your husband, your family, and all that good stuff. And Nicole and I, my wife, receive a lot of praise for our relationship from the outside looking in. And we're surrounded by a lot of women who are like, how do I get that? And I feel like there's these two competing ideals that women in today's society are raised with. The first of which is, as you're growing up as a child through adolescence, that your knight in shining armor, your Prince Charming, will come and rescue you from your life, right? And then you get into your 20s through college, and society slaps you in the face with, no, you don't need a man. You can do it all by yourself, right? Those two storylines, those two narratives cannot exist in the same space.
Yeah.
Being in control and being rescued, How do you combat that? Or how do you fix that in your mind?
Oh gosh, it's so challenging, and I'm a mom of a 10-year-old daughter.
I've got a 1-year-old, so I'm kind of asking this question selfishly. But
yeah. Here's the thing.
Is that true? First.
Yeah. So I think they can coexist.
Sure.
Because they do coexist inside the relationship. At least it does for me and my husband.
Okay.
We're two very independent people, and we're strong-minded. We're strong-willed. But there are times when we really need to rescue each other.
Sure.
There just are those moments inside of the relationship, and being able to lean into each other in that way and surrender in that way, especially for really strong people.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do, but knowing that you can do it and there's safety in that, it's really important. There's a difference between needing and choosing.
Sure.
A partner.
Yes.
So if you come from you need it, to me it's a lack mindset.
Okay.
And so need. All of the wrong things start showing up. Choose. That's control.
Yeah.
That's you choosing. Like, I'm clear that my husband and I would be capable of living on our own. We just are capable people, but we really choose each other.
Right.
And the reason why we can continue to live in that space is, and I believe this is the cornerstone to why it lasts. We've been married 15 years. We've been through some really hard times.
Sure.
We can say really hard things, and we can hear really hard things.
Okay.
And we can stand in front of each other and not leave and have the conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it requires a little space, but the ability to choose somebody, and then also once you're chosen and it's not freaking perfect, to really be able to stand in the space of knowing who you are, knowing who this person is, and hear some really hard things about how you're not showing up in the relationship, and being willing to change, and also being willing to say without fear that other person might leave, of how they're not holding their own in the relationship, and them being able to hear it and respond. So there's no silver bullet. It's just freaking hard work. And the day we decided to just close the back door to, well, maybe this isn't going to work out, that's when we really just decided to stand and fight through whatever we had to fight through.
Okay. I find that extremely interesting because of the microwave mentality of the dating scene as I witness it from the outside in now that I'm married. There's this, like you said, it's just hard work. Like relationships are just challenging, period. But when you're in that dating / honeymoon phase, and like what I witness is at the first sign of difficulty, or you don't like the way I roll my toothpaste or whatever, it's like I'm done.
Yeah.
Scroll through Tinder and see what's next. Like I feel like that's a very real dynamic for single people now.
Yeah.
And it makes it that much more challenging to find your penguin.
This guy with this penguin and lobster. This guy with this penguin
They
and
mate
lobster.
forever.
It kills him.
Are you not a penguin man?
I don't.
I just dropped the analogy and he was like, what? But seriously, I feel like that's kind of like the way dating is now. It's like, well, you're good for now. I'll hold out for what's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an instant gratification world, though. Like that's the society that a lot of, kids are growing up in, because you're so detached from, the interpersonal relationship of having to speak somebody face to face.
Yeah.
And you can use these different platforms to interact with each other now, and so you're losing that personal interaction. And like growing up, I don't even know how the kids are growing up nowadays, to be honest with you. But I imagine it's a lot more difficult than the way we grew up, because we could fight, say what we had to do, and it's like you're good to go. But nowadays, I think kids are so fragile, and like anytime they face adversity, they don't know how to respond without falling into something else, like going running to their parents or blaming a situation, like being able to face, adversity in their own way and figuring out their way through that path.
Yeah.
So it's just a difficult time, I think, because everybody's trying to figure out how to respond to the world we live in nowadays,
I think it can be taught, though, because I've been witness to it, and I'm super grateful for the education that my kids are getting, and one of the things they focus on is courageous conversations at their school. So, for example, my daughter had a friend that did something that really hurt her feelings, and she was so sad about it. And so I asked her, well, is it something that you want to shake off, or is this something you want to have a conversation about? And she said, I want to have a conversation about it. And I said, okay, would you like me to set up a meeting for you guys? And she said, yes, I would. And so I called the mom and I said, Hilton would like to have a courageous conversation with your daughter. And so we said, okay, let's meet for breakfast. So the girls went and we let them sit at their own table, and they had a little hard time like getting started. They didn't know what to say. And so I just sort of said, this is why Hilton invited you here. And both girls just started crying. Hilton said what happened. Her friends sat there and listened and heard her and said, Hilton, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. And then they were able to work it out.
Yeah.
But I think it takes relentless pursuit of teaching them how that like tough conversations are going to show up everywhere in your life. You're never not going to have to do these conversations. Right. Yes, a lot of them are online, which is why I think they get so nasty, because it's a lot easier to be nasty when the person's not sitting in front of you, but when you have, you make two people come together and they feel the hurt, they see the hurt, they want to be better for each other.
Right.
Yeah.
But man,
that mediation session,
yeah, it takes commitment in any relationship. Your partner, your friends, your business partners. You just got to constantly show up and decide who you want to be.
Yeah. I think it's awesome that you're pushing that social education to your kids. That's such hard work.
Well, and I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I had to learn it much older so that they can have it now.
Do you have siblings?
I do, but it's, oh gosh, we're such an American family. So I have one sister who is 2.5 years younger than me that was born with a lot of complications. Okay. And so the relationship is not a traditional relationship. Then when I was 12 and a half, my mom had twin girls.
Yo.
Yeah. So they were born premature, heart monitors, the whole thing. So they're turning 30 this year. That's crazy. But I was more like their babysitter than their sibling. So we never really got, I didn't have that.
Got it.
My husband had it though with his sisters, bing, 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 all very close. And he's like, you don't understand sibling relationships. You have to understand we love each other, but we mess with each other constantly. So I was like, okay, because my daughter and my son get at each other like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I brought up the sibling thing because, that's how we were raised, is to confront the issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was in the aftermath of a fist fight, but nevertheless, like, you don't leave the room until it's squashed.
Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome.
And one of the things that we were raised with, amongst us 4 boys, my mom had all 4 of us inside of 6 years. And was you don't leave the room unless the issue is resolved, and you don't go to bed without saying I love you. Period. You don't end the day without not knowing you're loved. And I carry that into my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids. But like, I don't know that message is carried forth into our kids' daily practice. Like, it's important. A lot of people, and like, people think it's weird. You know what I mean? Like, no, let's settle this right now. And by settle this, that doesn't mean it has to get physical by any means, but before we leave each other's space, there will be an understanding of some sort.
Yeah. And sometimes I want to say the understanding can be, I'm willing to work this out, but I need a minute.
Oh, sure.
Because like, I'm the type of person where I'm like, I need to think about it.
Like, your processor.
If we talk about it right now, it's not going to go the way either of us.
I'm going to tell you all the things.
Yeah. One of the things I say in our manifesto is, I believe every day is a chance to begin again. We just can. We can always begin again. And when we break a promise, or we do something totally crappy, or we show up as someone that we just is totally out of alignment for us. If we get responsible, clean it up, and then make a new promise, that is enough. Because we're not going to do it perfect all the time. We're going to mess up. I mean, especially having kids, you mess up all the freaking time. I feel like I apologize more than I've ever apologized in my life. But I'm committed to taking responsibility for who I'm being, who I've been, and forgiving myself for it, and then making a new promise. Yeah. Because then there's opportunity to be better.
Sure. Yeah. What's your process for forgiveness? I feel like that's a very interesting word, especially when we're talking about the introspection of forgiveness. Like, what's your process like for forgiving yourself? It's one thing to get over shit that happens to you.
Yeah.
But like the stuff that you're in charge of.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about is I forgive myself with ease, and others with ease and compassion. And one of the biggest turning points in my life, one of the biggest transformations I ever had, was the day I looked myself in the mirror and I put my hand over my heart and I just said, I forgive you. And I just started crying because I forgive you for all the things that you said you would do and you didn't. I forgive you for all the things that you've said about yourself that were not nice, the things that you've done to others that you really wish you had done differently, for all the ways that you are holding yourself hostage for. I forgive you. And I really meant it.
Yeah.
And from there, I could start again. But my process really is, and my husband and I will ask ourselves this, because, we'll do something that we feel bad about, or say something that we just didn't really mean that way. And we'll ask each other, can you forgive yourself? Like, you're a good person. You didn't, that wasn't your intention.
Yeah.
can you clean it up and forgive yourself? And the process gets easier and faster with time. But that was the biggest one, when I allowed myself to really vulnerably look at myself and say, I forgive you.
Okay.
What have you learned from being, first, being a wife, and then secondly, being a mother?
In terms of forgiveness?
Not in forgiveness, just in terms of just like an overall lesson, essentially, that you may, like your kids may have taught you something that you never would have imagined, or what your husband may have, like there may have been a test that came along where you really tested, I guess, your faith in that relationship, or some type of adversity in a sense.
How long is your show?
All day if you want it to be.
Go.
First 24-hour show, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
Marathon
I'm going to need to clear my
Tayne.
schedule.
Let's make it happen.
Oh, man. So in my relationship with my husband, I have learned a lot of things. The first was I was the worst communicator on the face of the planet because I grew up in a household where you didn't talk about stuff. You either ignored it or you screamed about it. And that does not make for a great partnership. Sure. I was not, I don't want to talk about it. That was my thing. I don't want to talk about it. I would leave the space all the time. I don't want to talk about it. And that was my way of controlling the situation. Right. Like you suffer with it. I don't want to talk about it. So it's really hard to learn how to communicate effectively, especially when you're in a relationship and it's affecting other people. That's one of them with my daughter that, it's brought me to my knees so many times, the things I swore I would never bring into my parenting relationship with my kids that I had in my relationship with my parents.
Sure. And
I hear myself do it. And I, luckily, because I swear it's so hard. I go to the parenting courses, all of the personal growth and development. I do all the things because I'm just really committed to being better for her. And I still mess up, but I've been able to separate the stimulus from the response. I've found the space in between there. So even when you're doing something super stupid and you've got that little thing that's popping out of your head going, this is super stupid. Why are you doing this? Stop. Right. And yet you continue. I've been able to be in the middle of doing something like that. And the thing pops up and I go, I can stop. Okay, I'm really sorry. Can we start again? And that's been, that's an ongoing lesson. Sure. For sure. I've learned that the most important thing I can teach my kids is how to know themselves and love themselves deeply. So that when they do choose a partner, they can still be them. And it is a real choosing because that partner accentuates the greatness in them, supports the greatness in them. And that's not an easy task either because it has to start with me. Yeah. If I'm going to teach them how to love themselves, I got to love me too. So being an example of that has been really, really challenging, but super fulfilling because it allows me to teach other people too, not just my kids. Sure.
Speaking of what you're teaching your kids, kind of reminds me of a conversation we had with Anat Perry. She runs a retreat called the Camp for the Soul.
Oh, cool.
And
it's a cool name.
And she talks about unlearning, right? And when you're talking about the things that you never wanted to bring to the table in your relationship with your kids that was on the table in your relationship with your parents, what were some of those things that you had to unlearn so that you could pave a new path?
I had to unlearn screaming first.
that was your default?
That was your big thing, huh?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
I have a real loud voice. I had to unlearn that. So I can tell when it's going to happen, but I had to figure out the process for what got me there. And it started with like this heat and tension that would come up into my shoulders and rise up my neck. and then I can tell it's
physically manifest
yeah,
that way.
It does. It physically manifests that way, like, you know. But I had to recognize that's the thing, and like sort of move my body. So sometimes I would just stop in my tracks, turn around, and walk away.
Yeah.
Mommy will be back in a minute. Or with my husband too, same thing. I'll talk to you about this in a minute, because they're so much more important than that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be like that for anybody, especially the people I love the most.
Yeah.
So I had to unlearn this rage response. And it's just taken some time.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm exponentially better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The it's such a process, the personal growth and development thing, because as you increase your awareness, right, it feels like you evolve as a human being. There's this, you always feel like there's something to work on. It's like, damn it, like I just got here.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
you want to take your foot off the gas, but no, there's always more work to be done. And as you move from one phase of your life to the next, that's kind of where the work continues to change.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I applaud you for, number one, all the work that you've done on yourself.
Thanks.
Right. And then you're being the vehicle for so many people to become aware, first and foremost, and then take that first step. You know.
The thing that turns me on the most about the work that I do
Yeah.
is that moment when somebody sees an opportunity they couldn't see before. It's been there all the time.
Yep.
But they just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly that shift.
Sure.
And it's amazing. It can be in any area of their life. Being in that seminar that Caitlin was at, that I was presenting, it was like you could see light bulbs clicking.
Yeah.
It was so cool, because we carry around such a heavy burden of this idea that we're supposed to show up a certain way. We're supposed to say certain things, do certain things, be successful, be a perfect parent, be whatever, all these things. And yet we're carrying around this baggage of all the things we're not. So I give this example of like, can you imagine going into an interview for a job and you are dragging this backpack full of all of the not good enoughs, and this person said this to me, or I did this and I did that and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. All of this bag of crap, like all of these lies that you tell yourself, and you pull it in with you and you're like, hi, nice to meet you. Let me just first tell you all of the ways I suck at everything. And you're like, but we really do. We wear these like not good enoughs as armor sometimes. And like when you can peel that back and see the greatness within and really acknowledge it, A, as a gift, and B, as truly great, then there's just magic that happens. And just a room fills up with this inspiring possibility. Like that's what turns me on. That's why I love doing this.
That's dope. I'm sure you've had many, but what's one of like the most memorable situations you've ever had from a seminar that just really resonates with you?
Oh my gosh. So there's an exercise that I've done where it's 6 minutes of just pure movement. So there's sometimes up to thousands of people that do this in one room. So there's just like a lot of energy. But this one particular experience, there was a woman who had traveled from New Zealand and she was exhausted. She had just gotten there. She was gorgeous in this red dress, hair totally done, and like really showing up, like really just a beautiful presence in the room. And during this exercise, you can move around the room, and you have to move your body the entire time. You can't quit, but you may not speak to anybody. So it's about really being able to tap into somebody else's rhythm, right? Like really getting in tune with their energy and like supporting the idea is everybody has a different rhythm.
Right.
Like my jam might not be your jam. And this was a business seminar. So it was teaching people how to tap into potential customers' rhythms,
Right.
The people on your team's rhythms. You know, somebody really might like jazz and somebody else really might like heavy metal. And you're like, you're not talking their language.
That'd be
Right.
interesting to see.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so you've gotta be willing to hear what their rhythm is.
You got the Harlem Shake and the headbanger over you. know.
Right. Totally.
The picture in my head was just lighting up, like seeing somebody headbanging and somebody's just like classical dance.
So we play all these different songs, and they're all different genres,
Yeah.
and you have to dance to the rhythm of that song.
Right,
It may be
sure.
a song you've never heard before. It may be a genre you hate, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter because these are somebody loves it. That's somebody's jam
Yeah.
in that room, even though it's not yours. So I could see during this exercise, she had stopped and she was sort of standing by her chair, and there was just, you could feel like this sort of, something got him. It was the visual.
It was the visual. The headbanging. That's my detailed visual going in.
That's awesome.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. We're not in church.
We're not-
That shit in my mind just went somewhere else there. It just went somewhere. I'm sorry, guys.
That's awesome.
Oh, back to the Kiwi dancing now. I'm grounded.
Oh my God. So I could tell that she was just feeling sort of defeated,
Yeah. Okay.
sort of like drained. And so I danced up towards her, you know, and I can't talk to her, right? We can't share words, but I just engaged her with my eyes and started just sort of like, come on, stay with it. You can do this, right?
Right.
You guys, Eye of the Tiger came on.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And she transformed. We were standing there and I'm looking at her and dun 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 dun, right? Like comes on and she just starts
Eyes just like
She went.
intense.
She felt
like it
like the haka
starts
came
from
out of
the
her.
base and it just came out. She starts punching the air. She is going for it.
Yeah.
Hair is falling out of the bun. She is kicking the ass of whatever is holding her back, and she freaking means it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, I see a friend holding her up. She's like completely collapsed in her arms,
Exhausted.
Yeah.
crying, exhausted. She just absolutely turned a corner in her
Took it
life
there.
in that moment.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's like when any of these seminars, any of these events, you get what you put into it.
Sure.
And if you're ready and you're willing to go all in, you get your life.
Yeah.
You get your freaking life. It's awesome.
That's sick. How do you create that vulnerable space where somebody can be willing to go to that point of exhaustion or crying and just like emoting essentially?
I'm willing to go first.
Ah,
My vulnerability opens the door for theirs.
okay.
So like if I have an emotion, it's coming out of my eyeballs first. Like I always share that with the room. If I'm angry, if I'm sad, if I'm joyful, whatever it is, like I'm weeping at it. But I love being a soft touch like that because I get to really experience what people are experiencing. They know I feel them and I'm willing to walk the path with them. I'll open the door.
Sure.
I mean, you've got to walk through, but I'm showing you me walking through first.
Yeah.
So
That's huge.
yeah, I'm really willing to expose myself, all that I am and all that I'm not first.
That's huge, you know, because we talk a lot about the authenticity and vulnerability on our show and just with our conversations. And it's like true authenticity, because you hear the word thrown around and like, what's it truly mean? But like what you're talking about is like allowing yourself to open the door by being your present self, like and truly giving people freedom to be themselves. That's incredible. Like that's the best way I've heard it defined, I think.
Oh, thanks.
In my mind, because, you know, you hear the word be authentic, like, what the hell does that mean, right? Like, let me make an Instagram post real quick, like,
Yeah.
shit is
Hashtag
jacked up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really cool. That makes a lot of sense.
I can only assume you've read Daring Greatly.
Oh yeah.
Probably 7-8 times.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have the audio version, I have hard copy version. Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of, you know, the what Brene Brown stands on.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yep.
You know, and but what you're talking about, you know, to take the room, right? Like people are in the audience to hear Tayne do her thing, and to be present enough to let that vulnerability come through. That is no small feat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when did you become comfortable with just letting it happen? Because there's a moment, right?
Yeah.
And like we've had it where it's like, I'm gonna go there, like, and then you stop.
Mm-hmm.
And you divert and you start talking about something else, or you just kind of move the discussion in a different direction instead of embracing that moment and letting whatever come through.
So I'm thinking about it for the very first time, actually. I've been a public speaker most of my life.
Yeah.
I competed in college. I did it all through my career. When I stopped, the first time I didn't memorize a speech. I used to memorize every single presentation, word for word, because I wanted it to be perfect.
Yeah.
I think when I stopped worrying more about what people thought of me
Sure.
and cared more about what they got out of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was so concerned about messing up, or, you know, the people that pay me to do this, making sure I did it right for them, or any of it. I always wanted people to be touched, moved, and inspired, but like, I don't care what you think of me is if you leave better than you showed up.
Right.
So that's the turning point for me. That's when I was able to do the thing, to show up and just really be me, be vulnerable. And I truly believed that my struggles, my imperfections, they're gifts, and they allow me to relate to the struggles of others. So I'll show up. You asked me, is there anything I don't want to talk about on the show? No, I don't know, because I would way rather share my struggles than my successes.
Sure.
Because sharing my struggles and then what happened and how I got out of it, that's way more helpful than I'm the best. You know, like, I've had great successes in my life, and I give myself credit for that, which is a new thing, instead of keeping a list of all the ways I've screwed up or missed opportunities, or like, you know. But I want to help people learn something, just like I look to my mentors to learn something.
Sure.
And I don't learn just from their success. I learn from watching them fall and get back up. You know, that's to me the most important thing to share.
Yeah. Awesome.
I love that. Where you are now, do you still feel like you're living in your why or your vision essentially, or do you think this is just the beginning of your platform and you plan on expanding it further, like in the realm where you're giving seminars now? Do you see it outreaching towards like other platforms, books, audio, somewhere, or is it just going to still be like that one-on-one meeting, in-person type of activities?
Okay, so in terms of scale,
Yeah.
I see it massive.
Okay.
Like that's what I put out there,
Yeah.
right? Like I see it on a huge scale. The foundation is the same, because I've never been truer to who I am. I am as true to who I am right now as I've ever been. I will keep growing and expanding and evolving, and I hope that it does the same with me. But it will always be honest. It will always be the truth. And I hope that the bigger it gets, I want it to get bigger because it can reach more people, so that they know that the truth for them is exactly how it's supposed to be, that they can show up as they are, and that's the best frickin' version. That's what we've been waiting for. You know, the world needs that version, not the one that they're pretending. So the core of her soul story, the core of the messages that I share right now in my coaching or in my speaking is 100% what I want it to be as it grows. And I want it to keep growing.
Right. No matter what the vehicle is. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
oh my
you're
gosh.
incredible.
You guys,
You're
thanks for
incredible.
having me. I love being here.
Yeah. I'm just so happy that you know, the girls went and met you, and you know, they're like, and we got to set this up.
I'm gonna be bumping Eye of the Tiger all day today, dude.
Funny story.
Plus, I'm a tiger anyways. Forget it.
No, you're a penguin.
Okay. Cut the show. Okay?
When they were wheeling my wife in to deliver our daughter, they were like, "What kind of music do you want to listen to?" And she was like, "80s rock." I'm like, okay. My daughter was born to Eye of the Tiger.
Stop it.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So
That's
awesome.
so
I had
wild.
to try not to laugh because it was like,
You're like, yes, I know the song.
I'm very familiar.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do while I'm thinking about it for your audience, if they want to just get a little bit more idea of what our mindset training is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have what's called Her Soul Circle, where I do monthly mindset trainings, and I send it out to everybody who's involved. I'd love to give 3 months free to anybody who would like to participate.
Wonderful.
And just have them put in Feed Me, Fuel Me.
Okay.
Yeah, dope.
Yeah.
Appreciate you on
Thank
that. Yeah,
you.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Tayne, thank you, Tayne.
Yeah. Cool.
That's amazing.
And
Thank you so much.
On that note, where can everybody go follow you and support you and everything you have going?
Thank you. Yeah. So hersoulstory.com. And then on Instagram, I'm at Tayne Griffin and at her_soulstory.
Beautiful.
Tayne,
Yeah.
Tayne.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. Awesome. And it's Griffin with an I-N.
Okay, love it.
Wonderful.
Let's get it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
Thank you
being
so
here.
much,
You're
you guys.
incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time, guys, feed me, fuel me.